Hi guys, and welcome to your very first drum lesson. The first thing we're going to do is talk about the different parts of the drum kit and what they're called. So this drum here is called the snare drum, and here we have, that's the ride cymbal. We have the hi-hat over here. We have the crash, another crash, and we have the toms, and the one we operate with our right foot is called the bass drum. Okay, so what we're going to do first is so just a few little exercises just to get our hands working together and our right foot as well before we start playing some beats. So if you haven't already, check out at the website the video called Holding the Drumsticks for the First Time, because it's really important for you to get comfortable with the right grip so that you know, you don't get tension and you start off kind of on the right foot with drumming. So check that out, Holding the Drumsticks for the First Time. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to count. We're going to count 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and we're going to play the ride on each of those. So it's going to go like this. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Okay, so keep playing that once you really get comfortable with that. That's exercise 1. We're going to move on to exercise 2. So exercise 2 is where we start using the bass drum. So I don't know if you can see that over here. This is the bass drum over here. And we're going to play that together with the ride. Why don't you try that? Bass drum and ride together. And that's going to happen only on beat 1. So it's going to look like this. So we're going to play the bass drum and ride together. 1, then and 2, and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Okay. Now, playing the bass drum, there's a few different techniques on how to play the bass drum. So usually we play, if we're beginners, we play something called heel down. So let's take a look at that just for a minute. We keep our heel flat on the pedal, and we use it to pivot the pedal like this, like that. So I want you to find a comfortable position, not all the way at the top, not all the way at the back, but kind of here, about here. And I want you to completely relax all the muscles in your leg, at the front and at the back. You don't want any tension. And just see if you can play it once, like this. And when you finish playing, you're completely relaxed again. What you don't want to do is play and do this, because then you're using all the tension in the front of your leg over here, and this starts wobbling back and forth, and that's no good. And then it's going to start to hurt after a while. So, play and relax. So just before you play, you're going to lift your foot slightly just to prepare, and then you're going to play like this. Can you see? Up and down. If you lift it too much, then this is going to start wobbling around. So you need to just lift it slightly just before your foot leaves the metal, and then you can execute the note. But it happens kind of really quickly. You don't want to go up and then wait and then down. It's all one move, like this. So if you try 2 in a row, and you can try 3 in a row. So get used to that. And once that feels okay, then start putting it in with the beats as well. The third exercise, preliminary exercise, is going to involve the snare drum, which is played with the left hand, and it's going to happen on beat number 2. So when you're not playing it, try and just keep it, close to the snare drum, not touching the snare, but a few centimeters just above the snare drum, and it's going to look like this. It's going to happen on 2. If I play only the snare drum, it's going to look like this: 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Okay, so now we're going to play the right hand, the ride, and the snare drum. So let's see how that works. So 1 and is going to be the ride on its own. 1 and. 2 is going to be the ride and the snare drum together. 2. And then we have the last and is on the ride. So it's going to look like this: 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Excellent. Great. So those are 3 preliminary exercises. Now we can start our first drum beat. So the first one, drum beat number 1, is it's going to start with the bass drum and ride, like this, on 1. So this is 1. 1. And then and will be the ride on its own. And then we have 2, which is the ride and snare drum. 2. And then we have another and, which is just the ride. So really slowly, I'll do it slowly. It's going to be 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. Okay? Let's try it together. Once you've practiced that on your own, let's try it together. So I'm going to count in. I'm going to count in 4. I know we're playing in beats of 2, but I'm going to count in 4. And it's going to go like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Excellent. All right. So that's your first drum beat. Drum beat number 2 is where we start with 2 bass drums on 1 and. So it's going to look like this: 1 and. And the end is the same as the last one: 2 and. So here we go, nice and slowly: 1 and, 2 and, 1 and, 2 and, 1 and, 2 and. So again, take your time, pause the video, practice that for as long as you like, until it feels nice and comfortable. And then here we go, let's try it together. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Okay. All right. So, which one is that? That's beat number 2. Okay. Beat number 3 is this. So Beat number 3 is bass drum and ride. 1, and then we have and then 2 is the ride and snare drum. That's 2, and the end of 2 is the same, ride and snare drum. So nice and slowly. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Good. Practice it on your own. Obviously it's gonna feel a bit difficult at first, but the more you do it, the more it's going to be really easy, just like walking, you know. So let's try that together. 1, 2. 1 and 2 and 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 1 and 2 and. Okay, right. So that was the third beat. Now, beat number 4. We start with the bass drum and ride. This is 1. Then we have and on the ride, and then we have 2 on the ride and snare drum, 2, and then the and of 2 is the ride and bass drum. So and, I'll do it nice and slowly. 1 and 2 and. One more time. 1 and 2 and. Now, because there's a bass drum at the end, on the and of 2, and there's also 1 at the beginning, so when we repeat the phrase, it's going to sound like there are 2 in a row, like this, and 1. So sometimes it's a bit confusing, but I'll play you the thing repeated. It's going to go like this. 1 and 2 and 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 1. Okay? So give it a practice. And now we'll try it together, okay? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. Okay. So now we have the next one, which I believe is number 5, and it's going to go like this. We start with the bass drum on 1. 1. Now the and of 1 is going to be the snare drum and ride. And let's just do that beginning bit. 1 and. 1 and. Again. 1 and. So 2 is also ride and snare drum from the beginning. 1 and 2. One more time. 1 and 2. And we're going to finish it off with just a ride on the and of 2. So it's going to be 1 and 2 practice it. And here we go. Let's do it together. So, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 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 1 and 2 and. Great, so that was number 5. Now here's the last one for this video, for your first drum lesson. And it goes like this. 1 is the bass drum, 1, and is the bass drum, sorry, 1 was the bass drum on the right, 1, and is the same, and, so we have 1 and then we have 2, which is the ride and snare drum, 2, so up to there is going to be 1 and 2. And then we have a ride and bass drum, that's on the and of 2. So it's going to be 1 and 2 and. Again. 1 and 2 and. So just like before, we have a bass drum at the end of the phrase and at the beginning. So when it repeats, it's going to sound like 2 in a row. Actually, it's 3 in a row. So it's going to be like this: 1 and 2 and 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 1. Okay, so let's try that one together. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1 and 2 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 and 1. Excellent. So practice these as much as you can. We've got the 3 preliminary exercises, and then we have the 6 beats. In lesson number 2, your second drum lesson, we're going to learn how to put all of these things together, and it's going to sound much more musical, much better. So stay tuned for your lesson number 2.